Hey, so I just wanted to share a thought I was having this morning. And I just was doing some exercise, so excuse me if I'm out of breath. But while I was exercising, I was listening to Jim Rohn, who, if you haven't listened to, you should take a listen. He was a personal development speaker in the 80s and 90s, and he was originally a farm boy from Idaho. His family ran a farm, and then he went on to be this big time motivational speaker, personal development speaker. And sometimes I listen to him when I'm exercising, and he always gives these analogies about plants, about reaping what you sow, and how the plants don't grow in the winter, but they do grow in the summer, and how the winter always comes, but the summer always comes also. And I think his message was that the good times will come and the bad times will come, and we just have to be prepared when the good times come. But I kind of got a different message out of it today, personally. What I got was, we are sort of like plants. I grow plants, I grow a garden. So I grow my butternut squash, and I grow my hot peppers and my cucumbers and my spinach. Right now I have 27 little pots on my windowsill growing all different types of things, and when it comes to be around May, it's time to plant them outside. And the plants they're something that I have to take care of every day. So I have to check the soil, and if it seems like it's too dry, I have to give a little water. If the soil seems like it's too moist, I need to find a way to drain the water out a little. And if the plant isn't growing, maybe it's not getting enough sunlight, so I'll move where it is on the windowsill to try to get it more sunlight. And sometimes, depending on the plant, I might cover the pot with cellophane to keep the moisture in, or change the levels of moisture. And when the plant gets big enough, I have to replant it. So I start growing them in egg cartons, and then when they get big enough, I transplant them to a little bit bigger pot, which is enough room for them to grow, but not too much room. And as they get bigger, I have to transplant to a bigger pot, and so on until May when I have to plant them outside. And I was thinking that we are sort of like plants in that I think sometimes we, or at least I'll speak for myself, get this irrational belief that I will get to this point where I don't have to maintain self-care, and I don't have to, be, I'll just say, working on myself or taking care of myself, because I will have gotten to a point in my practice of exercise or meditation or self-care or my own psychology where I just get it. And it's kind of like the plant, like, it never gets to the point where it's just is okay and it doesn't need to be tended to. Like all the way through the summer, after I've planted the plants outside, I still have to check the moisture. I still have to give them water when they need water. If they need food, I need to fertilize the soil. If they're not getting enough sun, I have to trim a tree to get more sun in. There's always like adjustments that are being made, and sometimes I trim a tree to let more sun in, and then that tree regrows, and then it covers up the sun again, and I have to go trim the tree again. I think it's similar with like our psychological patterns. We make these adjustments. There are times when we recognize a psychological pattern or thought, and maybe we reframe it or we make an adjustment, but then a couple weeks, days, months later, it grows back, and then we have to make that adjustment again. But I think the framework is helpful for me, because sometimes when I get into this belief that at some point I will be done and I won't have to tend to myself anymore, it kind of sets me up for failure because that's just not realistic. I think a more realistic framework is to look at ourselves and our minds and our bodies like a plant that always needs to be tended to. And what that does for me is the plants. I really enjoy taking care of the plants. There's a study. I don't know exactly who did the study. You can look into it, but and I don't know all the numbers exactly, but the basis of the study was that there was a nursing home and there were 2 floors in the nursing home, and they were elder patients, and on the first floor they gave the patients plants to take care of, and on the bottom floor they didn't give them plants to take care of. And the people on the floor where they were taking care of plants reported much more happiness and quicker healing in their progress, and it was just an overall better situation for them. And I believe the only variable were those plants. So we can find a lot of joy in taking care of plants, and I do personally. I love seeing the plants grow. And when I try to grow 2 butternut squash, and one grows and one doesn't, it doesn't feel like a failure when the one doesn't grow. It's just like that seed wasn't ready to grow, or that it just wasn't that time. It wasn't time for that seed to grow, so I just take care of the one that did grow. And I think it could be similar in ourselves. Like if we're working on things in ourselves, if we're trying to reframe things in our mind, or trying to work on a certain thing, if something doesn't sprout, so to speak, if we're not progressing in some area or accepting something we want to accept or so on, maybe it's just not time, and then we can take care of another thing in our life that it is ready. So the framework helps me to think of myself as this plant that I'm taking care of. It reframes from my internal, sometimes irrational belief that I'll get to some perfect state and kind of setting myself up for failure. And it kind of puts me in the garden with my plants, and I'm just another plant that I'm taking care of. And when it sprouts, it's beautiful, and when it doesn't, that's just the course of Mother Nature, and it's not necessarily a failure. So I wanted to share this thought with you because it was helpful for me. If you have questions, you can send me an email at james@themindfulplace.net, and I will try my best to answer your questions. And I look forward to speaking with you again.